The temptation to use public power and play God is almost irresistible.
As I've said before, the United States does not torture. It's against our laws and it's against our values.
We bomb them. You know, it's cool to me because I like explosions and stuff like that, but like, I don't get to see the actual explosion, and that's what I want to see.
I know what they're going to say, not guilty, because no one saw them pull the trigger. I'm tired of that. Don't bow down anymore. Hold your heads up. We want our freedom now. I don't want to have to go to another memorial. I'm tired of children. I'm tired of it.
We now sit at the pinnacle of human existence. Each day, as wars rage on all over the world, we sleepwalk to work, not concerning ourselves with the most important problems we face as a species. It is fact that we are herded like cattle, while the elite get rich and the poor die hungry. There is a dark force ruling over humanity in the form of the New World Order, and it is up to you to stop the progress they have already made. Welcome to the formation of resistance. Presidents and world rulers are constantly rewarded for small and pointless tasks. It is assassinated leaders like Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy who have truly done the most for us as a people, and when they speak out against the control the shadow government has upon the people they are representing, its own operatives remove them from power by any means necessary. This is indeed the case with John F. Kennedy, as video evidence proves that there was very strange instances occurring up to and after his assassination. Here, you can plainly see the agents in the vehicle following Kennedy command to his main bodyguard to not come along for the ride. Minutes later, he was assassinated, unprotected and open to attacks. As with most assassinations, the facts given by the government and its agencies are very questionable, and the public rarely questions the reports given by the media.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration...
The speech you just heard, given by Kennedy in 1961, speaking out against the New World Order, is most likely one of the reasons he was assassinated. He left behind a beautiful family, and strangely enough, his brother Robert was also assassinated just a few years later. Yet no one has truly been held accountable for these crimes, and the investigations into the murders are extremely questionable in nearly every aspect. Many people believe that the CIA are directly involved in both crimes, so we should point the finger at the current director to get the solid facts. We should ask Leon Panetta what he thinks of all this evidence. Here's what former U.S. Vice President and Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney has to say about taking matters to illegal means.
Consequences of the Democrats taking over Congress in the last week. Nancy Pelosi said this: we win, speaking of the Democrats, we get subpoena power. If you're subpoenaed by the Democrats, would you go?
I have no idea that I'm going to be subpoenaed, and obviously we'd sit down and look at it at the time, but probably not, in the sense that the president and the vice president are constitutional officers and don't appear before the Congress.
So that's just your view of executive power. You're not going to go up and testify.
I think that's been the tradition. I can't think of the last time a president did appear before the Congress or a vice president.
Gerald Ford, I think.
He did, that's right, but not under subpoena. He did it on his own hook.
And
he
what,
wanted to explain the pardon.
If world leaders can't be trialed, then what can we do?
over from the pacifist march.
a quello, porazzi.
Che bastardi.
Però tutti quelli che massacrano, che vanno in ospedale, poi ciao, non tornano più quelli, rimangono lì con loro, in questura, e chissà quante botte ci danno. Allora io devo scegliere se preferisco un embolo magari questa notte, o se invece preferisco farmi massacrare di botte in questura. Cosa scelgo? Voi cosa scegliereste? Io preferisco forse l'embolo.
The Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg Group, the G8, and other meetings of public secrecy must be protested. Your voice truly matters in the fight against the tyranny that has a clutch on society. We must protest in order to make a difference. Now, although protesting is a fair way to address these issues, and people gather all around the world, most people are still unaware of the problems that we face as a species. It is because of this neglect that wars still rage on in nearly all corners of the world. We are now entering a militant society, and the governments are doing their best to unarm the citizens so that they can take control of us with ease. Without our rights and freedoms, we are very vulnerable to allowing these forces to gain total control.
President George W. Bush signed a law authorizing tough interrogation and prosecution of terrorism suspects.
The bill I signed today helps secure this country, and it sends a clear message. This nation is patient and decent and fair, and we will never back down from the threats to our freedom.
Bush, trying to help Republicans maintain control of the U.S. Congress by emphasizing national security, called the Military Commissions Act of 2006, quote, one of the most important pieces of legislation in the war on terror. Much of the new law, required under a Supreme Court decision, sets standards for interrogating suspects, but human rights groups fear it could allow harsh techniques bordering on torture, such as sleep deprivation and induced hypothermia.
As I've said before, the United States does not torture. It's against our laws and it's against our values. By allowing the CIA program to go forward, this bill is preserving a tool that has saved American lives.
Critics and legal experts have predicted the new law will draw vigorous court challenges and could be struck down for violating rights guaranteed under the U.S. Constitution. Deborah Luderbeck, Reuters.
As the world evolves, so does its people, and now more than ever is the human race waking up to the realities and seriousness of the problems our governments have bestowed upon us. Knowledge is power, and knowledge costs nothing to obtain. We must learn about current global events and learn the rights we have as citizens. Now, more than ever, our rights are being taken away in the name of national security. The internet and websites like Facebook are devices created and used by the secret government to monitor our activities. Now more than ever are we blindly being led into martial law and the apocalypse.
Do I have the legal authority to do this? And the answer is absolutely.
Well, when the president does it, that means that it is not illegal.
For these cowardly acts.
Who is behind it? What happens next? The deadliest attack ever to strike America. As terror hits home.
Please note that the buildings fall at free fall speed. The laws of physics prove that this cannot be possible unless the support from under the falling object has no resistance. As the building fell, explosives on every second floor went off to ensure the building collapsed. It has been proven that thermite was used. Workers in the World Trade Center also claim they heard drilling and building going on prior to the attacks. Let's also not forget that the owner of the buildings made a rewarding insurance claim just prior to the attacks.
A high level plus short duration gives us an energy wave pulse traveling across the water in a direct line of sight 1.8 miles to the camera at Frank Sinatra Pier.
When I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to, as I look out, something is that I can't.
This time, we will record when the sound meters peaked to determine the timing of the strongest sound pressure waves. The original digital sound recording contains very significant peak events of short duration, typical of drum beats and high-speed, high-power explosives. The first massive sound peak at -17 seconds is followed by clouds of smoke and dust rising from the base of the tower. An internal and cascade series of sharp peaks are also evident before and during the tower's fall.
I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to, as I look out, something. As I look out, something is that I can't.
It's time to wake up, people, and witness the true atrocities happening right before your eyes. So then, you may be asking yourself, how do these people get into power? To answer this, we must go back in time and look into governmental history. Ironically, if you split the word governmental, you are left with two common words: govern, or to control, and mental, or the mind. To control the mind. Symbolism and secrets lie everywhere we look, and it is this wisdom that has been held secret and passed on to future generations. The pyramid has always been used to differentiate the royalty or rich from the peasants, middle class, and the poor. The symbol as well as the pentagram can be found everywhere, including the street layout in Washington, where the White House falls directly on the point of the star. Other landmarks are built upon the other 4 points as well. This type of astrological-based building can be found being used by many cultures throughout history. Knowledge of space, energy, science, and complex mathematical structures, such as the Mandelbrot set in sacred geometry from the mystery schools, is information that the global elite and secret societies don't want you to know about. So how then? can lying, murdering politicians gain such complex knowledge and make their way up the pyramid of power? Symbolism and secrecy dates as far back in time as we can remember, and it is highly visible in Freemasonry. Freemason lodges are within nearly all major communities around North America and in Europe, and chances are if you look in the phone book, you will find a Blue Lodge near you. There is nearly 5 million Freemasons around the world, yet most only move up the pyramid to the 3rd degree, or Master Mason. They can then choose to move up to the 33rd degree by advancing to the Scottish Rite, although some may choose the alternate and join the York Rite. It is during this phase that the Mason must swear with his life to never release the secrets of the Masons. Many rituals, reenactments, and initiations are done before the member can achieve himself to the 33rd degree, and after this lengthy process, they can choose to go even higher up the pyramid, eventually making it into the top groups of global elite like Bilderberg, Skull and Bones, and spots in presidential administrations and military control. Albert Pike was a soldier in the Confederate Army, as well as a writer, attorney, and Oddfellows Order Mason, where he joined the lodge in 1840. In 1871, he wrote what Masons to believe their Bible, a book called Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. He also predicted 3 world wars. While serving as general during the Civil War, Pike was faced with charges accusing him of being in charge of soldiers that were committing crimes on the battlefield, such as scalping soldiers. Very early war crimes indeed. There is also the fact that Pike was among the founding members of the Ku Klux Klan, which is also directly related to Freemasonic beliefs in higher level circles. The Klan's logo is also 2 cross pillars, which also resembles the Iron Cross. Ironically, a monument of Pike stands in Judiciary Square in Washington, D.C. It must be noted that Freemasonry is thought to date back to the ancient pyramid builder Hiram Abiff, and the Knights Templar are thought to be related by blood to top Masonic families and Illuminati bloodlines. Freemasons are older than Canada and the American Republic itself. There has been 14 known presidents who were Masons, including British royalty, Napoleon, and many others. It was actually Napoleon's grandnephew, Charles J. Bonaparte, that founded the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. He also founded the American Protective League and was Attorney General of the United States from 1906 to 1909 under the Roosevelt administration. Freemasonry has also been directly linked to Satanism and witchcraft, as the rituals and initiations are almost exactly the same. Freemasonry happens in nearly every city, and we must speak out against what happens in secrecy behind closed doors. This bloodline-related, pyramidal power structure system can be traced back to ancient Egypt. The Egyptian structure shows that the workers, or the slaves, are at the bottom, followed by lower class, middle and upper class, and finally the pharaohs on top. Today our world is run in a similar fashion. As you can see, the power structure begins with Freemasonry and moves up to the Shriners. During this process, advocates are encouraged to obtain key employment positions so that they can manipulate and control society. These positions of power are most certainly inherited and not earned a majority of the time. This secret government is set up just like the mafia and operate in the same fashion. They muscle their way through the system using corruption and murder to get what they want. This public corruption has been going on for too long, and we must turn this pyramid upside down, because we the people are stronger than the society within the society.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it.
And we'll be watching. Be safe on the campaign trail. John Kerry, thanks for joining us. And we'll be right back.
Many people have dubbed those who research into crime and politics conspiracy theorists, claiming they are mad, wacko, and out of their minds. The truth is, a theory is someone's guess or opinion on a certain subject, but when cold hard facts are presented as evidence, these theories become truth. It is unfortunate, however, that the ones pointing the finger and laughing at these so-called theorists are actually the ones who are uneducated and still asleep to the truth. Most people spend all their time brainwashed by what the TV networks force us to watch, when we really should be watching independent documentaries about true knowledge and the truth about what is going on in our world. The media, however, does an excellent job in controlling the programs we watch, which influences families' lifestyles everywhere. Most television offers no intelligence whatsoever, and this is suppressing the potential of how smart the average human can actually be. Slowly, though, people are waking up. So now, let's talk about war.
قاتلوهم يعذبهم الله بأيديكم ويخزهم وينصركم عليهم ويشف صدور قوم مؤمنين ويذهب غيظ قلوبهم ويتوب الله على من يشاء والله عليم حكيم.
The United States and its allied nations have more weapons of mass destruction than any other countries in the world combined. Using hypocrisy, they accuse other countries of harvesting these weapons to gain access into the country through an appeal process given to Congress. As these governments continue to lie to its people and Congress about the truths of war, they continue in their game of risk and are quickly achieving world governance. The majority of the population does not concern itself to the details of these wars, and therefore are clueless to what is actually going on. These wars are mostly dramatized to make the industrial military complex more revenues during times of war as well as domination.
In Iraq, the regime of Saddam Hussein is no more. A month ago, 1 month ago, that country was a prison to its people, a haven for terrorists, an arsenal of weapons that endangered the world.
Files that were recently uncovered from the U.S. National Archives confirmed that companies operated by Prescott Bush, grandfather of George Bush, was aiding the Nazis in their war efforts. Prescott was working directly and discreetly with Nazi industrialist Fritz Thyssen, who also operated banks, including one right in Berlin. On October 28, 1942, the United States government seized these businesses. However, it is also fact that these dealings continued until as late as 1951. It would seem that no corrective actions were ever put in place by either country's government after the war. Also partnered in this Thyssen ring was former New York Governor W. Averell Harriman and his younger brother. Prescott Bush was also known to have beliefs geared towards ethnic cleansing and racial purities. It is strongly agreed by many people that this relationship with the Nazis is the direct source of the Bush family fortune and got them into power. Still to this day, I have yet to see George Bush speak about his grandfather publicly. It is also worth noting that Karl Rove's grandfather aided Hitler in constructing a concentration camp, and Gustav Schwarzenegger, Arnold Schwarzenegger's father, was a senior-ranking SS officer. And these are the people we vote for. It would seem to me that we should do a bit more research into these people's lives before we cast a ballot for them. However, since it's been proven that these leaders are chosen rather than fairly elected, we should probably not vote at all, just to send these people a message. Another thing I should quickly mention is that if you do a search on the internet for the name Thyssen, you will soon find out that their bloodline also continues on through several major businesses and monuments, including museums and skyscraper buildings. Most notably though, they are known for their steel factories all around the world where they manufacture these. The ThyssenKrupp logo contains hidden symbolism, as it contains the 3 interlocked rings. These rings can also be found on a very well-known logo, the Olympics. This logo, as well as the passing of the flame ceremony, were incorporated into the games after they were held in Nazi Germany in 1936, just prior to the war. The Nazi Party were inspired by the works in Plato's Republic, and Hitler believed that the Aryan race were direct descendants of the first European civilization in the lost city of Atlantis. It is for this reason that the Nazis were looting homes and museums all over Europe to steal very old works of art and literature. It would seem that they were searching for clues to find proof of this belief and theory. Hitler ordered several archaeologists and historians to dig for ancient civilizations and treasures in other countries as well.
Ich übergebe euch dann die neuen Feldzeichen in der Überzeugung, dass ich sie in die treuesten Hände gebe, die es in Deutschland gibt. Denn in den Zeiten hinter uns, da habt ihr mir eure Treue tausendfältig bewiesen. Und in der Zeit vor uns kann es nicht anders sein und es wird auch nicht anders sein. Und so grüße ich euch denn als meine alten, treuen, ex-Aules, Ex-Männer. Sieg heil!
In 1933, when Hitler was Chancellor of Germany, the Reichstag building caught fire just 1 month prior to the elections. A Dutch communist was found in the building during the fire, and so Hitler blamed the communists for the attack. Convincing Parliament to remove all communist MPs, he was then able to fill the spots with Nazi Party members, thus making it a majority. Many people believe that Hitler had the building torched so that he could eventually become Führer, which happened less than a year later. Here's what Hitler's Reich Marshal Hermann Goering had to say at the Nuremberg trials after the war. Naturally, the common people don't want war, but after all, it is the leaders of a country who determine the policy, and it is always a simple matter to drag people along whether it is a democracy, or a fascist dictatorship, or a parliament, or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. This is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked, and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country. The Reichstag fire certainly sounds like this type of military planning, and this has also been used several other times throughout history, including 9/11, Pearl Harbor, and many more. These type of attacks have also been used in an attempt to pass new legislatures or remove rights of the people in their own country. In the case of Pearl Harbor, it was apparently the United States that flew planes into the base in Hawaii, which inevitably led the U.S. to become involved in World War II, declaring war on Japan. There are no rules in war, and perhaps the best weapon one may use is strategic planning and covert intelligence operations. And although these are effective ways of winning wars, in many instances human rights are violated. A genocide can be described as any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. As such, killing members of the group, causing serious bodily harm or mental harm to members of the group, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life, calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part, imposing measures intended to prevent births within this group, and forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. Some of the more well-known genocides to happen throughout history include the Holocaust of World War II, the Ottoman Empire in 1915, Bosnia in 1995, Rwanda in 1994, and Cambodia during the Vietnam War. There has been countless other genocides, but many of them do not see very much media coverage. Humanity should be seen as one, and it is very unfortunate when one race thinks they are more dominant than another. The fact of the matter is that these events don't have to happen, but they do happen. With highly advanced intelligence structures all around the world, it makes one wonder why these atrocious crimes even happened in the first place. The truth is, war crimes happen in nearly every war. When soldiers or groups think they are above the law, and a country is devastated, in all too many instances people take advantage of this and use the wrong type of actions against the people of that country.
You're talking about war crimes, for example. When World War II started and Germany first bombed London, everyone was horrified. Bombing cities, that was criminal behavior. You bombed troops. You didn't bomb innocent civilians. By the time the war was over, we had virtually wiped out Dresden, for example, in one of the most horrible bombing raids ever. And Tokyo, we virtually burned to the ground.
During the Vietnam War, the Nixon administration, with the aid of Henry Kissinger, dropped bombs on Cambodia. What makes this event criminal is the fact that the administration did the bombings without the confirmation from Congress. This event was also known as the secret bombings.
Well, in Harper's Magazine this month, there's an article called "The Case Against Henry Kissinger, the Making of a War Criminal." Explain, Christopher.
I think he's a war criminal.
Look at it burn! Look at it burn!
I think he's a liar. I think he's responsible for kidnapping, for murder.
In July 1973, the detection of Nixon's taping system would lead to the discovery of the Watergate cover-up, the indictment of key members of the White House staff, and the end of the Nixon presidency.
The lies that had to be told by the administration over Cambodia led eventually to the employment of the plumbers, which was the secret White House team employed to stop leaks, which led to Watergate, which led to the fall of Nixon. So in a way, the bombing of Cambodia was the first step in the chain that led to the fall of Nixon.
Nixon resigned rather than face impeachment. One of the original articles of impeachment addressed the concealment of the Cambodian bombing from Congress. When the impeachment was dropped, so was the investigation into the secret bombing. The new president, Gerald Ford, retained Henry Kissinger as his Secretary of State and pardoned Richard Nixon.
Dr. Kissinger is perhaps one of the major scholars in America and the world today in this area.
Kissinger has also had his hands dirty in nearly every war the U.S. has been involved with since World War II. Having fled to New York in 1938 because his parents were German Jews, Kissinger was quick to join the U.S. military as he was a fluent speaker of the German language. he quickly advanced to the intelligence division and volunteered for hazardous duties and operations during the Battle of the Bulge. During the American advance into Germany, he was assigned to denazify the city of Krefeld. He then became sergeant in the Counterintelligence Corps and received the Bronze Star. Now, although it is arguable that he had an impact and important role during this war, it is the criminal acts that were committed after that should be addressed. Currently, Kissinger is still in power, and gave Barack Obama his first job out of college. He is also the current State Department Special Envoy to the Obama administration, and was the most frequent visitor to the White House during the Bush administration as a special advisor in matters relating to the Iraq War. Worst of all, he is a member of the Trilateral Commission, Bohemian Grove, Council on Foreign Relations, Aspen Institute, and of course, the Bilderberg Group.
And he can give a new impetus to American foreign policy, partly because the reception of him is so extraordinary around the world. I think his task will be to develop an overall strategy for America in this period when really a new world order can be created. It's a great opportunity. It isn't such a crisis.
So if this war criminal thinks that we need a new world order, then judging by what these people have accomplished in the past, it is obvious they are talking about a military state. And how about that Iraq war that Kissinger was involved in? The media only loosely and briefly covered the torture incidents where soldiers were severely abusing people's rights. These grotesque images prove that soldiers have no respect for human life, and were obviously given orders to follow through with these tasks. If they really knew what war they were fighting for, these pictures would have never been taken. If this is their idea of a new world order, then we have two choices. Become the sheeple that they now regard us as and follow their plans, or we can voice our opinion now and fight back for our rights and freedoms given to us by the Constitution. The word parliament comes from two French words, to speak and to lie.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor to have you here.
Thanks.
I'm a first-year student in South Asia Studies. My question is in regards to private military contractors. The Uniform Code of Military Justice does not apply to these contractors in Iraq. I asked your Secretary of Defense a couple months ago what law governs their actions. Mr.
I was
Rumsfeld,
going to ask him. Go ahead. Help.
Well, I was hoping your answer might be a little more specific. Mr. Rumsfeld answered that Iraq has its own domestic laws, which he assumed apply to those private military contractors. However, Iraq is clearly not currently capable of enforcing its laws, much less against, over our American military contractors. I would submit to you that in this case, this is one case that privatization is not a solution. And Mr. President, how do you propose to bring private military contractors under a system of law?
Yeah, I appreciate that very much. I wasn't kidding. I'd pick up the phone and say, Mr. Secretary, I got an interesting question. This is what delegation, I don't mean to be dodging the question, although it's kind of convenient in this case, but never. I really will. I'm going to call the Secretary and say, you brought up a very valid question, and what are we doing about it? That's how I work. Thanks. The danger to our country is grave. The danger to our country is growing. The Iraqi regime possesses biological and chemical weapons. The Iraqi regime is building the facilities necessary to make more biological and chemical weapons. And according to the British government, the Iraqi regime could launch a biological or chemical attack in as little as 45 minutes after the order were given. The regime has long-standing and continuing ties to terrorist organizations, and there are al-Qaeda terrorists inside Iraq. The regime is seeking a nuclear bomb, and with fissile material could build one within a year. Stretch, big stretch. I'm sorry.
Mr. President. I know you said there'll be a time for politics, but you've also said you wanted to change the tone of Washington. Howard Dean recently seemed to muse aloud whether you had advanced knowledge of 9/11. Do you agree or disagree with the RNC that this kind of rhetoric borders on political hate speech?
Yeah. Look, there's time for politics. And, it's time for politics. And, it's an absurd insinuation.
Let's take a look at how weapons have advanced over the years and how they're already being used on the general population.
The temptation to use public power and play God is almost irresistible.
War has advanced quite radically since the First World Wars, and with just a quick jump into the future, wars are now being fought in cities, bombs being dropped on buildings with people still inside. So indeed, war has advanced quite drastically in the last 100 years, and in the same fashion so has the technologies being put into new forms of weaponry. Mass production munition factories have expanded drastically in the last 2 decades. A vast amount of money is being spent on this industry, and as the majority of you know, governments are allotted a certain budget for the military. Many administrations spend way too much on these costs, which is the direct reason there is still poverty and severe problems of low-income families happening right now all over North America and abroad. These industries already charge absurd prices for the goods to stock these militaries, and some bullets cost as much as $4 each. Thousands are often shot in a single day, and it is quite obvious that it is taxpayers' hard-earned money that is paying for these Hollywoodized wars.
We hear the noise of helicopter, the sound of helicopter, and I think that the helicopter land here on the grass.
Like a film of Hollywood, they cry and go, 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 shout, go, 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 with guns and with the blanks, without bullet, blanks and sound of explosion, and broken the door. We are very scary.
John, I don't think any of us have ever seen anything like this, live, real-time pictures of an army moving forward in a battle zone.
The battle for Basra is still raging along this road.
We got rockets coming in on us. Tom, we're under attack right now.
There are substantial American forces close to the Iraqi capital.
Well, I think pictures do a lot to help tell the story, and we embedded nearly 100 cameras across the battlefield, and because I think images are important. I think they're even more important in certain parts of the world where language can be a barrier.
Brian Whitman was in charge of the Pentagon's media planning. His strategy paper puts shaping world opinion as priority number 1.
This holds true for the U.S. public and publics in countries where we conduct operations whose perceptions of us can affect the cost and duration of our involvement.
Present the words and pictures properly, use journalists effectively, and victory will come more quickly.
Was there any resistance as the forces were going in?
I think that I will leave that story to be told in great detail when the time is right.
What injuries did she sustain?
Well, I'm not going to get into the specific injuries that she received. That's up to her and her doctors to discuss at the appropriate time.
Doctors now say she has no memory of the whole episode, and probably never will.
I understand that there's some conflicting information out there, and in due time, the full story will be told, I'm sure.
When a soldier joins the military, they swear an oath to their country to contain and conceal all knowledge and information about the missions they participate in. When soldiers are asked to speak about the nature of their missions, they do not tell, and therefore the general public have no idea about what is really going on during these wars. If soldiers were to tell about these secrets, then we may have a better understanding of how to actually obtain world peace. Contracting companies make billions of dollars each year as wars are able to generate mass revenues and companies receive large bursaries and budgets to work with, using taxpayer dollars. Civilian-clothed contracted soldiers is a huge business.
In recent years, as we have been actively engaging in war, things the government used to do is now being done by private companies.
Food, laundry, and housing were services provided within the military.
Now we're in Iraq, you still need a lot of support mechanisms, and there's just not enough military infrastructure to do this. Private contractors come in and they fill the gap.
Well, I saw contractors in Iraq doing anywhere from helping fix tanks, helicopter mechanics, pretty much any job that's in the military, there's a civilian contractor right there.
There are over 100,000 private contractors working in Iraq, Kuwait, and the surrounding area.
This war has been privatized to a greater extent than any other war in history.
They're part of a multi-billion-dollar industry fueled by your tax dollars, an industry very much in need by the U.S. military.
40 cents out of every dollar Congress controls now goes to contractors.
There's more than 20,000 private military on the ground.
We have the second largest armed force in Iraq, are private security. They outscale the Brits or any other nation.
Another department that is also receiving billions of taxpayer dollars is the research into weapons technologies. After World War II, the US military managed to get some of the top Nazi scientists and weapons designers' charges dropped so that they could aid secretly in the development of modern weapons technologies. Over 1,600 scientists were brought over in an operation the CIA called Paperclip. This is one of the first laser weapons created in 1964 in Germany. Since its conception, the laser has advanced rapidly. If you search on Wikipedia for information on laser weapon technology, you will see that the US military has been researching and even developing nearly all of these right now. Chemical lasers, the active denial system, this is the establishment in which we can say is actually harboring weapons of mass destruction. This type of weapon, as well as biological weaponry, can all be traced back to the same source. There is a reason we all get sick with flus all at once, and scares like SARS and H1N1 get everyone into a panic. This type of weapon technology generates huge amounts of money through vaccine and prescription drugs. During the time they are doing these tests on these viruses, they need to generate more money to go into the research on their effects. These germs are easily pumped into the air using jet streams, where it spreads into different areas of the world. It is indeed strange that the general public are not aware of these concerns, so it is our duty to investigate and spread awareness of these issues.
piece by Ben Hecht here that was an uncredited bit of writing. It was the prologue for Gone with the Wind. And I believe that without it, without that necessary shot, that impact at the beginning of the film, that it perhaps would not have gotten the accolades or the acclaim that it did. There was a land of cavaliers and cotton fields called the Old South. Here in this patrician world, the age of chivalry took its last bow. Here was the last ever seen of the knights and their ladies fair, of master and of slave. Look for it only in books, for it is no more than a dream remembered, a civilization gone with the wind, gone with the wind.
The word occult can be defined as knowledge of the hidden. Occult investigation by human cultures dates back as early as Babylon, about 1200 BC. However, some people believe this society to be much older. The Assyrians, or Sumerians, were descendants of the Babylonian Empire, and it is thought that they were one of the first established groups of people in historical timelines. The study of the occult in modern times was mastered by Aleister Crowley, also referred as the wickedest man in the world.
So be my grave without a nest, that earth may swallow up my shame.
As we know, Crowley was an active Freemason, an influential member of the Golden Dawn, Ordo Templi Orientis, and the AA. He had learned many secrets of the world and understood most religious beliefs thoroughly. In later years, he experimented in many grotesque, perverse human acts, which earned him his nickname, the wickedest man in the world. Throughout history, religion has scolded its unbelievers to gain control. However, most religions can be traced back to astrology and paganism. Early civilizations had little scientific knowledge, and therefore the sun was seen as a godlike figure. Other elements were also incorporated into their beliefs, as well as the battle of good and evil, and hidden meanings and morals. Evidence of the occult throughout history can be found all over the world, and symbols are even used today which indicate it is alive and well. The eagle is a perfect example, and many people believe its current link to be found within the Illuminati, or the 13 bloodlines which have dominated thriving societies for the last several hundred years. These bloodlines have managed to control everything about what we do as people, shaping the way we live today. Families like the Rockefellers, who have controlled the monetary system and operated the world's largest banks throughout their entire existence. Even today, David Rockefeller is controlling your money, but as it would seem, his luck is about to run out. But he has made sure his son has a position in power, and he controls much of the donation societies related to the environment, and is a current member of the Council of Foreign Relations. Many of our nation's leaders and public figures can be traced back to the occult throughout history, and this is very apparent with the occult history of the Third Reich, as well as modern American societies like Skull and Bones. Movies have even been made about Skull and Bones, and its members meet at a place called Bohemian Grove where rituals take place.
I want to tell everybody out in TV land how they can come to the Grove, where their elected leaders, along with the big bankers and the heads of media, meet, along with some European royalty, every year to decide how to run the country. You can fly into San Francisco, or you can fly into Santa Rosa. You can even fly into Sacramento, and you just drive out to Highway 101. You take Highway 12 out west towards the coast until you get about 10 miles out from the coast, right outside the little town of Monterey. And the town of Monterey, off the main drag, you'll take the Bohemian Avenue. And it dead ends right here at the 2,700-acre Redwood Grove entrance, where your world leaders, among other things, set policy for much of the planet and dress up in black and red robes and worship, Moloch. They would say that Moloch was a Canaanite deity that children were sacrificed to. They don't say they worship Satan, they just worship an old deity that likes to gobble children, basically. So we're here in the spooky redwoods, and we've had a lot of interesting young fellows with security hats driving back and forth, but they're treating us well right now. I'm sure they're already on the phone calling the police, and well, I think if Kevin has got the nerve, we'll just sit here and wait and see what happens as the shadows get a little bit longer towards the evening here in Northern California, the Transylvania of North America.
The occult runs rampant throughout our governmental structure, and it always has. It is important that we educate ourselves on this issue, and the internet is the best source of information, even though the Barack Obama administration is working on tightening up the internet. This documentary can only briefly explain these topics, however the internet is a great resource to do independent research on all of these subjects. Throughout history, mankind has searched for knowledge, and the ability to relay this wisdom to other people has only made itself readily convenient in the last few decades. The impact the occult has had on modern society since then is astounding, as centuries of power and control have allowed its systems to root itself deeply in the way we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. Since the earliest of times, mankind has searched for answers to many questions, and gradually, as we evolved as a species, our knowledge and ability to manipulate our surroundings became more advanced. It wasn't until the Neolithical age that humans began farming and forming small societies. However, harvesting some crops is thought to have dated even earlier, to 12,000 BC, with the Natufians. The earliest known place of worship or belief-type practice can be found in Turkey, at the site of the Göbekli Tepe. Humans have always asked questions about themselves, nature, space, and overall the quest for the meaning of life. Religions were created, and gods of nature were put in place to represent the fundamental elements of the universe. This was an attempt to explain the questions people had amongst their group. Throughout time, religion and spiritual belief evolved, and became a way for higher powers to train people from birth to think in a certain way. The truths about life became hidden meaning, and symbolism was then used to confuse the average person, or the unbeliever. Hidden within the Bible are several truths about life, but these morals are well hidden in fairy tale stories and metaphorical interpretations. This strategy is used to keep the majority of the population unaware. However, if someone does learn the secrets hidden, only then are they deemed worthy. The devil was created to scare people into living a certain way, and to keep the masses away from these secrets of the occult. Even the word occult alone has a negative, taboo-ridden aura about it amongst the common individual within our society. When one digs deeper, they soon discover that studying the occult is merely gazing into the past, present, and future, and understanding the elemental energies around us and using this to one's advantage. Science, mathematics, astrology, astronomy, religion, and the universal link all this has to one another is studied. Obviously, when one starts getting into the supernatural or magic aspect of things, it gets more technical. However, the occult is for the most part harmless. So why then do people have such a bad image about it, even after all these facts?
Here's a mystery. Throughout the ages, in all the various religions of man, there is one constant: the personality of the being we call Satan. In Sumeria, he was Baal. In Egypt, Set. In Persia, Aaron. In China, he was chief of the warlocks called Wu. There is always the dark god, the fallen god. There's always Satan. And there are always those who, in their search for God, seem to find Satan instead.
The devil? Who wants the devil? I don't want the devil.
I think that's what's wrong with this country, because they don't believe in God and they don't believe in hereafter, and they've got no religious, and as far as I'm concerned, that's all I've got to say to you.
Symbols such as the yin-yang or the Ouroboros, the dragon which consumes its own tail to represent the concept of infinite, is a fundamental aspect to occult thinking. Even the use of tarot cards, an age-old practice linked with occultism, has been studied by our government electives. Throughout the ages, people like Plato, Nostradamus, Einstein, Isaac Newton, prime ministers and presidents of countries have been linked to the practices of occultism. This is not such a bad thing in most cases, except when those with power abuse their positions and are not rightfully punished. An example of this can be found in a more recent case, where the great native legend Geronimo's family pressed charges against Yale University and its secret society group Skull and Bones.
Geronimo died a prisoner of war, his body buried in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now, 100 years later, his family is suing to get his remains back.
After a while, it hurts you inside.
Harlan Geronimo is the warrior's great-grandson. He and other descendants are suing Yale University and the secret society known as the Order of Skull and Bones, claiming Geronimo's skull was stolen back in 1918 by Yale students, members of the secret order. One of the alleged grave robbers, Yale Prescott Bush, the father and grandfather of Presidents 41 and 43.
When you desecrate a grave like of this nature, you upset the spirits. And sooner or later, the spirits will come after you.
For decades, members called bonesmen dismissed the suggestion as a hoax. But a bonesman's letter written in 1918, discovered 2 years ago at Yale, suggests otherwise. Quote, "The skull of the worthy Geronimo the Terrible exhumed. Now, safe inside, the T. T is believed short for the tomb, the bonesman's private club."
I spoke with several bonesmen who told me that inside the tomb there is a glass display case containing a skull, and the bonesmen have always called it Geronimo.
Author Alexandra Robbins wrote a book on the secret order.
If it is found that Geronimo's skull is really in there, that's a crime.
Geronimo's descendants have also sued President Obama and Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, hoping to recover Geronimo's remains at Fort Sill.
He died as a prisoner of war. Still, he was not free, and he was not free to be buried in the old customary ways that the Apache would have been buried at that time.
Now, Geronimo's great-grandson says he's willing to take a DNA test. He and his family want Yale University and Skull and Bones members to tell what they know. We attempted to reach Skull and Bones. No one returned our calls. Yale says the university does not have Geronimo's remains and that it does not speak for the secret society. So a lot of unanswered questions.
And how does Yale know that they don't have them then?
Well, there you go. But they're looking into it. Technically, they could subpoena and possibly see whether, in fact, anybody will say, oh, yeah, well, that happens to be the skull, but unlikely.
What makes this accusation worse is the fact that Geronimo fought with his Apache peoples to defend their land from the U.S. and Mexican armies. Geronimo and 35 others surrendered to General Nelson A. Miles in 1886. Before these conflicts, the entire continent of North America was dominated by its native peoples. These people had defended the land since the Vikings. Now, native peoples who still wish to live their traditional lifestyles are forced to do so on reservations, similar to the idea of segregating them into concentration camps. For centuries now, the Church, merged with the government, has enslaved and destroyed civilizations all over the world merely for what these people believe in. It is known around the world that for the most part, we are free to believe and practice whatever religion one chooses. However, history proves that these dominating forces have attempted to destroy these values. Examples of these events include the Spanish Inquisition, the Salem witch trials, and even the Spanish Catholics' destruction of the Mayan Codex, essentially their Bibles, written before the time of Christ. Religion has often caused wars and conflict, hence the term holy war. However, if people used religions for what they should be used for, cultural heritage would last a lifetime. As time has passed, it would seem that science is taking the form of religion, and it is to no surprise that most studies in the scientific field can be related to occultism. Things like alchemy, chemistry, and physics would have been considered magical or demonic, proving to have supernatural abilities, and a death sentence would have surely been applied.
Now, our national anthem.
Drums out of the darkness. Listen well. Drums speeding like thunder. Straight from hell. Trumpets are blaring. The time's come round. Satan is here to claim his ground. There's an earth that's green. There's an earth that's free. There's a place for you and a place for me. But the bleeding hearts wouldn't let it be. We don't need them anymore.
Many people believe Satanists to be evildoers, individuals that indulge in animal and human sacrifices, and the reason that evil is on this earth. The truth is, these people fear what their religion taught them, and this outlook on life has caused them to become narrow-minded and not research into the truths and facts that outline our history as a species. Anyone who has non-biasedly read the Satanic Bible should be able to say with conviction that these accusations of ritual abuse are not advocated anywhere within the pages of the book.
Well, it occurred to me for many, many years that there was a large gray area between psychiatry and religion that was untapped, and no religion had ever been based on man's carnal needs or his fleshly pursuits. All religions are based on abstinence rather than indulgence, and all religions, therefore, have to be based on fear. Well, we don't feel that fear is necessary to base a religion on. The fact that religions for thousands of years have been telling people what they should do and what they shouldn't do according to the basic whims of a person who might be running the show is very understandable. We feel guilt is a necessary thing, not necessary that it's practiced at all times, but we're stuck with it. We have it in our collective unconscious. We have a certain amount of feeling of apprehension for things we've done because we're taught from childhood not to do certain things. Any attempt to sort of scrape the psyche clean is only going to make us much more, and certainly much more fraught with frustrations and tensions. So what we've done is just reverse the procedure. Instead of trying to free ourselves, we've taken all these hang-ups, we've turned them into useful situations. If you're going to be a sinner, be the best sinner on the block. If you're going to do something that's naughty, do it, and realize that you're doing something naughty and enjoy it.
Although a majority of the 7 deadly sins and 10 commandments make sense, some of the laws stated by the church are ludicrous and are only set in place to control people so that they can dominate how our lives are lived. Presidents and prime ministers are sworn in on the Bible, knowing that the practices their position in power entitles them to carry out goes directly against the book they are sworn in on. An example of this is how the Bible states that the love for money is a great sin and lending of money is strongly prohibited. But if you look at who is backing these presidents and prime ministers, it is more than often bankers and corporate powerheads. For quite some time now, money has ruled our world, and the times of trade are long but gone. The very object that dominates societies all over our planet, money, has symbolic secrets hidden all over it. These symbols, when deciphered, show us that there is much more going on than meets the eye. For starters, a majority of the people displayed on the bills were presidents or prime ministers that spoke out against the control that money had over the population. Another key fact to point out is that several of these prime ministers and presidents displayed on the bills were leaders that were assassinated, most thought to have been killed for speaking out against the monetary system. In 1935, the Great Seal was added to the American dollar. This Federal Reserve note contains an array of symbolic messages and meanings. On the left side of the bill, we have the Pyramid of Power, which contains the all-seeing eye, the Eye of Horus, or the Light of Lucifer, the great architect at the top of the pyramid. The words on the bill say Annui Coeptis, which translates to announcing the conception, and below it states Novus Ordo Seclorum, or Secular New Order, essentially translating to announcing the conception of the New World Order. The pyramid itself contains the date 1776, which is the date America gained independence from the British and the year the Illuminati was formed. There are 13 layers of bricks, symbolizing the original 13 colonies, and 72 bricks in total, which represents powers of the name of God in the Kabbalah. The right side of the bill, which contains the Great Seal, also uses the number 13, which is a representation also of the 13 Illuminatic bloodlines. 13 arrows, 13 leaves, 13 berries, 13 letters in the term one of many, and 13 stars. Complex geometrical patterns are also used on the background on most bills. On Canadian currency, the Seal of England is on all bills, indicating Canada's enslavement to the royalties of Britain. Even though the Queen gave Canada their independence, it is obvious that the country is still owned in one way or another. Spirituality and the supernatural have always played a large role in how societies work, and the influence this has had on rulers of lands is no exception. It is fair to say that most people believe in some sort of spiritual or supernatural presence which has an influence on our lives. Governments are certainly no exception. Before the Nazi Party was constructed, when Hitler was in his early days, he served in World War I. During this time, he stated that after several battles, many times he would be the only one left alive out of his comrades. He believed that there was some sort of presence amongst him that was keeping him alive so he could carry out important tasks later on in his life. It is a known fact that the more elite Nazis were involved with the occult and based critical decisions on occult readings and practices. In 1941, Hitler's Vice Fuhrer, Rudolf Hess, flew a plane by himself in an attempt to reach British powers to negotiate alliance between the two nations. The date he chose, as pointed out by his occult advisors, was a unique day, as planets would be aligned, which was an omen of good energies. He was then apprehended and became a prisoner of war. Hitler was infuriated, saying Hess had become mad and was not welcome back to Germany. Hitler did not instruct him to negotiate with anyone. In more recent times, occult and religious-based ideologies and rituals are still being practiced by many countries' leaders. As stated earlier in the documentary, Alex Jones penetrated the Bohemian Grove Club and exposed world leaders performing the cremation of care ceremony, where they were reenacting mock human sacrifices before a hollow stone statue of Moloch, the god of human sacrifice. When royal blood or political powers practice these rituals, you must obviously ask yourself, what exactly do these people believe in, and what is their overall agenda? These questions are quickly surfacing around the world, and they are getting away with it, and are allowed by law to do so. However, if you take a look into a modern world, on the other side of the table, and hear the stories about what happens when the average person decides to practice a unique belief system, often they are set up and destroyed by the same people and agencies that govern us. An example of this is the Branch Davidians, who formed their own private society and were practicing their own beliefs from the Bible.
Holding a child in your hands that lost its life in a fire where the temperatures reached in excess of 3,000 degrees is something that pierced my heart.
April 19th, turned the TV on and there I saw the tanks ramming into the front of the building and the fire shooting out, and it was horrifying.
Mommy, he says, they told us about that fire. He says they said my daddy and my brothers and my sisters are gone.
Things will be set straight, and people will know the truth of things.
Today, two subcommittees undertake historic joint hearings on executive branch conduct that led up to the events at Waco, Texas in 1993. In human terms, these hearings are about a tragic loss of life. 4 brave young law enforcement officers lost their lives on February 28, 1993. A planned raid went badly and off course. These 4 agents, dedicated and proud, deserve our full respect. They did not choose to die, but like many others in law enforcement community, they chose to serve. But this is a complex event. On April 19, 1993, after a 51-day siege, other decisions led to the use of so-called CS gas, and a fire broke out. The fire rapidly consumed the entire Davidian compound, killing all 22 innocent children and more than 60 adults. The truth behind that part of the tragedy is also important, and is the obligation of those who have responsibility for oversight to pursue the truth relentlessly.
As time passes, and we grow older, we must reflect upon what we have accomplished with our lives, and what difference we have made to this world. Many people do not wish to associate themselves with the government and wish to be truly free, to raise their families without the influence of a corrupt world. Our generation and the next will be capable of forming a resistance to what is happening around us, However, it is up to you and everyone else around you. Welcome to the formation of resistance.
Of the world power elite are no longer secret.
It's known as the Bilderberg Group.
The formation of resistance is a group of individuals around the world that are awake. They're no longer sleeping or walking around with questions in their mind, for their questions are answered. The formation of resistance is perhaps a public militant group that stands up against the government and the control that it has over us, and the control that it has had for quite some time. The formation of resistance is also a group of people that protest. We are no longer safe, and it is indeed time for the formation of resistance. A revolution is needed, and it's been due for quite some time.
The reason why I'm making these videos and I started this group is to promote global awareness about the control that certain powers have over the entire population of the human race on the entire planet. Doesn't matter what country you live in or what government rules over top of you, these videos will prove that all the governments are together in one global order, the New World Order.
Part of their operation.
George Bush is picking up where Adolf Hitler left off.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
I urge you to look this up on the internet. If I can't stress something enough, it's that. If you don't believe what I'm telling you, look it up on the internet and decide for yourself if I'm a liar, first off, or if maybe there's something you should be looking into. Maybe there is a bigger picture out there happening, and maybe there is something you can do about it. And there is something you can do about it, and that is to tell everyone you know about this, and to spread the word, and join groups, and, you know, discuss this, become active in your society, in your community, learn about what's going on in your community through the government and everything like that, question everything.
Bill, you've heard an awful lot of dramatic speeches and seen dramatic moments in times of great gravity for the nation. How would you assess this evening?
Well, first of all, notice that he is hugging the majority leader, a Democrat of the United States Senate, Tom Daschle, in a clear display of bipartisanship. This was a stirring address, in my view, shorter than his father's speech when he announced the New World Order.
In Time magazine, we see the symbols on both sides of the speaker's podium where the president is standing. The point I'm making is that, yes, this is Time magazine with bin Laden on the cover. We're talking about the big enemy. The big enemy. I will assure you bin Laden is not the enemy. Let me show you what the enemy really is. But if you understand symbolism, Nazi, fascist symbolism, you will notice on each side of the presidential podium two interesting, perhaps 5-foot-high symbols on each side of the podium where the president stands. This is what is referred to as a fasci, a bundle of sticks with a hatchet head. Now, what is the importance of a fasci? This is a symbol of Nazi fascism. The stuff that so many good Americans went to war in Second World War to defend the free countries of the world against Nazis and fascists. Somebody better start waking up and finding out bin Laden is not our enemy. This man is not your enemy. Here is the enemy. The symbols of world fascism, Nazism, the mace itself. One needs to understand that in the United States Senate, there is a symbol called the mace. This mace is a Nazi fascist symbol. It comes out of the ancient Roman Empire. The fasci symbols of the bundle of sticks with a hatchet head comes out of the Roman fascist system in Europe. So if we have an enemy, you can bet your bottom dollar, here is the enemy.
I'd like to start by discussing being born into this world. Each one of us is born, and each one of us dies. This is something we are guaranteed in life, because we are all living creatures. When we're born, we're forced into something that we have no say over. From the moment we exit the womb, we are given a number. At the hospital, actually, we're given a number. And this number is to identify us for the rest of our lives. It also coincides with our birth date. And this number is used by the government, obviously, to track you for your whole life. You know, they'll want to know your bank accounts. They can get a lot of information from you, and they can keep track of you. But we're basically born into something that we have no say over. We have to get a job. We have to work. We have to pay our taxes. We have to have a number. You know what I mean? And that's what troubles me. We are raised in a certain way because the higher powers like the government and religion, the churches, basically the people that have been controlling this hidden knowledge for centuries are trying to hide it from us. And they use means of media to hide this. They use means of, you know, deception. They lie. They control us with money and banks. Banks are a very recent thing. They've only been in existence for the last 100 years. Banks, like, why do we need money to survive? Because that's the way we're brought up. By the time we're born and we come out of the womb, it's what we know, it's what we see. It's just there. And this has continued for so many years that we think it's normal now. We're all born into this thinking that this is the way that it is, like this is the way we have to live. But do we really have to live like this? That's my question. And I ask myself every fucking day of my life, do we have to live like this?
Barack is like the manager of Burger King. All presidents are, including Bush. It's like this, when your fries are cold, if your burger is not done right, you go back to Burger King, America, or your government, and you say, my burger's cold, I want new fries. First, you go to the cashier, that's the courts. You argue to the courts. The courts, if you can't get no justice with the cashier, you say, let me see the manager. I want to go to the Supreme Court. I want to see the president. The manager comes out. Hi, what can I do for you? Now the manager can override the decisions of the cashier, but you never get to see the franchise owner of Burger King. If you really have a problem with your burger, you need to go see the franchise owner. We need to go to the top or to the bottom. We need to go to where the real architecture of government is. And it's not in a president. It's in a global scheme.
Politics in America today is identical to pro wrestling. And what I mean by that is, in front of the cameras and the public, we all hate each other. I'm going to kick my opponent's butt. I'm going to whale him from here to high water and beat the crap out of him. Yet behind the scenes, we all are friends going out to dinner.
Went to dinner together.
And it's all a work.
All intermarried. Show business.
It's showbiz. And that's what you have today in politics. The Democrats and Republicans aren't really opposed to each other.
The only thing that really matters is yourself and your own spirit and your own happiness. You have one life. We're born and we die. And in that life, we must complete our goal as a human being, or our specific duty to leave our legacy on the earth, or to leave our mark on the earth. We are all here for a reason. Whether we know it or not, we are all here for a reason. And we must learn this reason and harvest it and become the best we can at it. But at the same time, we're forced to perhaps diminish these skills and abilities for the greater good of society, as they say. I see a great revolt happening in the next year or so. Perhaps it's linked with 2012, but definitely there's going to be a big revolt, and people are starting to realize a lot of things aren't what they seem. And once you realize this, once you realize that life is much more than what you're living, it's much more than working, it's much more than, you know, sitting in front of the TV when you get home from work, watching the news, seeing what's happening. Life is entirely what you make it. So really, we shouldn't be restricted by these restraints that have been put on us since the beginning of humanity almost. I'd like to talk about a theory I have in regards to 2012 and the greater consciousness and awakening process that is linked with it. Many researchers and scholars believe, just as the Mayans predicted, that at the end of their Mesoamerican long count calendar, the human race would go through a certain awakening period. Essentially, the mind's eye would open and the human race as a whole would achieve greater spirituality amongst themselves and the consciousness aspect of that. Essentially, it would be an esoteric awakening. I believe that 2012 is already happening. I believe it's been happening for several years. I believe it's been leading up, and a lot of people know about this. There's secret knowledge, and Masons and the Illuminati and the New World Order definitely know about all this stuff, and that's why they keep their knowledge secret. We're learning about science. We're learning more about different things that we thought might have been absurd maybe 25 years ago. But it's reality. It's all reality. And we have to start thinking logically, more straightforward. We have to start thinking for ourselves and helping each other out.
George W. Bush, who had claimed to be a conservative, had tripled the size of the federal government, shredded the Constitution, and destroyed the image of the United States worldwide.
Nope, no weapons over there.
Endless wars, over 1 million dead Iraqis, and more than 5,000 dead U.S. troops. The Patriot Act, warrantless domestic wiretapping and spying, the end of posse comitatus, the rise of the treasonous North American Union, a deepening recession sliding towards total economic collapse.
Well, that's actually an interesting question. First of all, money is prior to money. This is going to sound like a long answer, but I'm not quite sure I know the nature of your question. But let me see how I can handle it. Thank you. Prior to money, essentially, trade.
Today, President Obama is he already received the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is after an extensive debate took place in his administration about whether or not to send more troops to Afghanistan. General McChrystal was requesting 80,000 or 85,000 more troops, or that's what he ideally wanted, but he knew that was unrealistic to request because the majority of the Americans oppose the war in Afghanistan, so he requested 40,000 for starters. And it's a very difficult situation in Afghanistan. And millions of people voted for Obama, hoping that he would end the disasters in Iraq and Afghanistan. But ultimately, the Obama administration, Obama himself, decided to send 30,000 more troops to Afghanistan, and he's urging his NATO allies to send thousands as well. We've already been in Afghanistan for 8 years now, which is actually more than the United States was in World War I and World War II combined. And we've already sunk $232 billion of our tax dollars. Over 800 Americans have been killed, and thousands of innocent Afghani people have also been killed. And for what? The U.S. occupation of Afghanistan has been an unending nightmare. It's exacerbated the endemic poverty that exists. Afghanistan is the third poorest country in the world. 2/3 of Afghanis struggle to survive on less than $2 a day, according to the Food and Agricultural Organization. 77% lack access to clean water, according to UNICEF. And female literacy is at 14%, which is barely improved from what it was under the ultra-conservative rule of the Taliban. And 90% of the spending of our tax dollars in Afghanistan goes to military, and only 10% goes to reconstruction. So we have to ask, what are we actually achieving over there?
I'm almost certain that when the majority of the population finds out that wars are generated to gain control over a country's resources as well as that area of land, and it's also created to generate income by raising our tax dollars around the world, or at least a partial amount of our tax dollars goes towards the war, only then, I'm certain, will the human race finally start evolving and becoming more peaceful and as one. It is very important that your voice is heard, because without your voice you cannot be heard. There cannot be change if you don't speak out, and that is something that you must learn, and everyone around us. With everyone speaking out, only then will there be a change noticed around the world. And with our voice, we can really change the impact of everything around us. You can be part of this resistance, and all you have to do is speak out against the corruption that you see happening every day around you. I mean, it's that simple. And I can assure you that there's no greater feeling in the world than knowing that you've done something good for humanity and for the people that are around you and you share this world with. As this documentary has explained, there is mass corruption going on around the world in the form of government, and this government is the same people that are ruling over top of us and are having an effect on our everyday lives. And it's very important that all of us as individuals start researching into politics and what's happening around our community, around the world, and the things that affect us the most, we should be looking into that. The things that interest us the most or concern us the most. I mean, there's so many things happening all at the same time that a lot of people focus on all of it at once. But really, we should be looking at certain individual topics or subjects that appeal to us the most, because those are the subjects and topics that we can really make a difference at. And it's just another brick in the wall. I mean, if you are part of that formation of the wall, with all of us together working at this, we can really make a difference.
One of the most difficult things about what I talk about is get people to drop their preconceived notions, their preconceived ideas, it can't be happening, this is impossible, Bill Cooper's a nut. Get them to drop those kinds of obstacles and just take a look at the evidence. Because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't want you to believe anything that I tell you today. I don't want you to believe anything that I present to you today. But I do want you to see it, and I do want you to listen, and maybe just maybe, what I'm all about is just maybe you will see or hear something here today that's going to convince you that something is terribly wrong. And it's going to empower you to become active and help us find out exactly what is wrong and fix it. What I'm going to talk to you about today comes from my heart, from my experience in life, from playing this role as messenger, which I take very seriously, from my efforts to wake up the American people, from my family, from all the letters that I get, from people that I talk to, just like I've talked to many of you here today. I've learned some things. And I think these things need to be passed on to you. And I think you need to start examining yourself, your agenda, your mission. Who are you? What are you about? What do you believe about America? Is it true? Are you helping to divide us more? Or are you helping to bring us together? Do you really understand what this country is all about?
The formation of resistance is really just the formation of a resistance around the world which basically ends everything that has been destroying us for so long. And this can be achieved. We just have to work together and do it.
The people that control this world could sit around one large table and have lunch.
But it's the sick stuff they come out with. The United Nations, we got to reduce world population by 80%. It's just how they want us. They want us serfs out there. Oh, you know, like your serfs over in Britain. The people, my people that left to get away with it, eating little turnips and little onions they grew, and they're like a foot and a half shorter than the noblemen, with their teeth hanging out as they ride by on their horse. Oh, look at them, we're much better than them. That's their pleasure. No, their pleasure. Well, I'm not going to give them their pleasure. I'm going to have a gun in their mouth and see how they like it, because I'm free. That's been in my family history to fight. And I'm not your slave, so get it straight, and we're ready. You can nerve gas us all day. We're ready to rock, and the people are waking up. Because some of us are willing to spill our blood for the sacrifice. You hear me, scum? We're coming for you.